DX have virtually done everything from, have Mike Tyson join DX to try to take over WWE.com. That's why I believe that with DX having done so much over the last decade, they shouldn't have the 1,000 additional Raws centered around them. They should definitely do something on Raw, have something to do with it. Yes, but leave it up to the legends and leave it up to the superstars up today to promote the 1,000th edition of Raw. It's always been fun for me seeing people like Edge and Hulk Hogan, who held the tag team championships together at one point on SmackDown, work together. And not only just Edge and Hulk Hogan, but people like Randy Orton and Hulk Hogan, Randy Orton and The Undertaker. It's always fun to see new talent initiative stars mix it up with legends of the past who really paved the way for those superstars of today and representing the new talent initiative the way they are to do what they do. For me, watching Raw and seeing the legends mix it up with the new talent initiative stars to promote pay-per-views or different angles were always fun. Because it's something we didn't get a chance to see back in the 80s and 90s. It was always icon versus icon, established name versus established name, babyface versus heel. Heels against heels, and every man for himself was something we didn't see enough of back in 95, 96, and that was unfortunate for us and fans of wrestling for close to 20 years. Because it was always heel versus babyface and the same kind of thing every week. The good thing about the 80s and 90s was wrestling was a huge aspect of the show and was important. It's not so much as important as it was back in the 80s and 90s, a decade that was dominated by people like Flair and Hogan. And then, of course, you had the Monday Night War going on between WCW and WWE, which went on for about 86 weeks before WWE rose to the top and entered the abyss, which was a huge part of the Monday Night Raw history, which is looked back at all the time. It's probably looked back at too much. Just this past June, actually, they had WCW June on WWE Classics on Demand for the entire month, and a lot of Monday Night Raw's illustrious moments were talked about for that entire month on WWE Classics on Demand. They always have something special every week that ties into the current theme with WWE and their storylines. But I think that it's just it's just going to have to wait and see how it all turns out for Raw. I'm really excited though about the 1,000th edition because no WWE program has actually achieved this type of honor. And it's going to be interesting to find out if Raw will indeed surpass over 1,000 shows and potentially go to 2,000 shows 10 years from now. And I wonder, sometimes I sit down and I wonder, when writing a column or putting together a radio show, if in fact 10 years from now Raw will still be on the air with superstars that, I've never heard of, commentators I've never heard commentate a match before, and what kind of presentation WWE will have. Without question and debate, WWE will be around, if not in fact under a different name, when Vince McMahon is finally finished up with WWE and hands it over to whoever he's going to hand it over to. Triple H is obviously the number one candidate to gain control of WWE in its entirety, with a couple of shareholders thrown in there. I wonder if Raw will still be on the air, if WWE will have a consistency with their presentation, a lot of things. I wonder, will WWE be sufficiently ran, or will it be ran into the ground like Ric Flair ran WCW into the ground in the last few years of it? When he had his feud with Bischoff and took over control of WCW and then went to Vince and begged him to purchase WCW because it was a failing product. Will Triple H fall in that same category? I hope not, for the sake of wrestling fans, but we're just going to have to wait and see. I wonder if WWE will maintain its consistency and the presentation and how it will change. What will WWE be like 10 years from now? I also have to give it up to fans here on YouTube who have been promoting the 1000th edition of Raw the way they have. I've seen so many old school editions of Raw on different YouTube channels over the last couple of days. I've seen everything from the very first edition of WWE Raw in 93 to the last ever WWF titled edition of Raw, to the very first Raw after the brand extension in 2002, which was an influential moment in time in WWE and Monday Night Raw's history. I've seen the video footage where the invasion on the part of DX took place. I've seen the Raw with the bedpan edition, with the bedpan incident with Austin and McMahon. The Raw where Mick Foley became the WWE champion for the first time in '98. I've seen so many incredible moments from Raw's history and so many unforgettable editions of Raw uploaded to various YouTube channels. So it's kind of cool seeing how you fans are remembering WWE Raw and its history, either by uploading an entire edition of Raw or just a moment from Raw's history in a 2-minute video clip. So many YouTube channels are packed with moments from Raw's history, so it's kind of unique seeing how you fans are, remembering Raw and preparing yourselves for the 1000th edition of Monday Night Raw by uploading an entire edition of Raw to various YouTube channels or just uploading a 2-minute clip. And there have been over 995 editions of Monday Night Raw in the last 19 and a half years. And you fans bring back a lot of memories for me, some moments I've even forgot about. I usually know a lot about wrestling, but I tend to forget on time to time, especially with age. I remember watching my first wrestling show for the first time in the early 90s. And it's been about 15 years, and over 15 years I've taken in so much, but on times I tend to forget a lot of stuff. So you fans using YouTube as a video-on-demand service really brought back a lot of memories, and I think that YouTube is probably the most powerful way to promote the 1000th edition of Raw. So definitely you fans deserve a great deal of credit. I hope YouTube.com doesn't remove your footage like they tend to do from time to time, so I send a special shout out to YouTube here in conjunction with Raw celebrating the 1000th edition of Raw. Regardless if it's an entire edition of Raw or just a 2-minute video clip, I urge you not to remove the footage that these fans have uploaded, because it's a whole lot of fun looking back at all these moments. There have been over 995 editions of Raw and hundreds of moments involving hundreds of superstars who are either still with the company or who have moved on to better things to do with their time. But it's a whole lot of fun. So many YouTube channels have uploaded so many editions of Raw and so many incredible, unforgettable moments, from the invasion on the part of DX to the NWO debuting for the first time on Raw, to the Austin McMahon bedpan incident, the first time Austin stunned McMahon. There was even the Raw up there where Mick Foley won his first WWF Championship in '98 in its entirety, which was incredible. I just recently threw up the first week after the brand extension in our YouTube video archives for our HW Wrestling Network, so it's a whole lot of fun. So I urge that YouTube doesn't take these videos down, because it's absolutely incredible just seeing how much footage you fans have uploaded. And if you're actually listening to the YouTube edition of the show, you see the graphic we're using, and I sometimes forget just how many wrestlers have been involved with the over 900 editions of Raw. You see the graphic there on our YouTube channel. Everyone from Carlito to Mickey James to DX to Ric Flair to Randy Orton, they're all there. And of course John Cena is a face that'll never be left out of a promotional graphic. I sometimes forget how many wrestlers have been involved, and even the wrestlers who aren't there on the graphic definitely paved the way for what wrestling is today. And it's been always a treat for me to see wrestlers of today work with wrestlers of the past. I always love seeing an edition of Piper's Pit involving, Roddy Piper and some of the new talented stars. And if there's one guy who can tell you a lot of stories in wrestling, it's definitely Roddy Piper. And another one that I'd love to have a story told to me by is Lex Luger, because he's seemingly a guy who's been there for everything, working with WWE, WCW, and TNA. He's done it all. And I think that, Roddy Piper is one guy who definitely has a story to tell, because he's not only had legends on Piper's Pit, which was a huge part of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown over the years, but he's been able to have superstars of today guest star on Roddy Piper's Pit as well. On a recent edition of Old School WWE Raw with the old school graphics and everything, Randy Orton and John Cena were actually on Roddy Piper's Pit. And that was actually the final segment of the Old School edition of Raw, and they opened it up with Cowboy Bob Orton predicting a winner of the WWE Championship match at a pay-per-view that took place 6 days after the Old School edition of Raw, which I believe took place back in 2010. So a mixture of legends and new talent initiative stars have appeared on Piper's Pit, and that's not been the only segment that's been featured on Raw over the years. We have seen the Snake Pit on Raw. We have seen Mrs. MTV segment, the highlight reel, knockoffs of anything of Roddy Piper's Pit, which will never be surpassed. But they've all been there. Even the Heartbreak Hotel in the early 90s, which was a legendary segment hosted by Shawn Michaels. We have seen Raw, showcase some incredible talents over the years. We saw the light heavyweight division, which was launched for the first time in 1997, to compete with WCW's Outstanding Cruiserweight Division premiere on Monday Night Raw, and a tournament was announced to crown the first ever light heavyweight WWE champion, which was, of course, Taka Michinoku, who won the championship from Brian Christopher at In Your House DX back in 1997, which was headlined by Shawn Michaels and Ken Shamrock for the WWE Championship, and Triple H versus Sergeant Slaughter, the acting commissioner of the WWE, who was involved with a lot of editions of Monday Night Raw, in a boot camp match, which was basically anything goes match, which was right up Triple H's alley, especially to promote D-Generation X. Really, the only two superstars who seemingly have been involved with every edition of Raw is either Triple H or The Undertaker. I know they haven't been involved with every edition of Raw, but there are some wrestlers who seemingly have been there forever. And if The Undertaker doesn't appear on the 1000th edition of Raw, I'm going to be very disappointed, because if The Undertaker isn't there, it's going to seem kind of awkward. So that's something that I'm definitely going to be looking forward to. We haven't seen The Undertaker since WrestleMania. Now, on average, we see him only once or twice a year. He comes in a couple of weeks prior to WrestleMania. He appears at WrestleMania, then goes for the entire year. And we don't see him until the following WrestleMania. And then they revisit the WrestleMania prior where The Undertaker competed. Really going to be looking forward to finding out if, in fact, The Undertaker is a part of the 1000th edition of Raw. And having been involved with so many incredible feuds in Monday Night Raw's history, from the